Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Tokenmetrics is a cryptocurrency investment platform that helps users leverage machine learning to become better crypto investors. Our in-depth analysis helps eliminate the emotions of investing, find profitable investment opportunities, and filters out scams.
This is part 2 of my conversation with Thomas Power. Part 1 isn't on YouTube because of the censorship by YouTube. You can find it on my Odyssey and 3Speak channels. What I would like to do is speak to you about the power of Twitter. Because you posted something on one of our groups about Twitter. And, you know, I'm on Twitter. I've got about 6,000 subscribers, and for weeks it doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, doesn't go up, doesn't go down. I just wonder if something happened with the algorithm, because I'm certainly being shadow banned on both my YouTube channels, and they're actually slowly shrinking, which is why I'm moving over to Odyssey and 3Speak. So, but I was struck by what you said. What is it about Twitter, and then how to play Twitter?
Okay, so I've been on Twitter since March the 20th, 2007.
And when did it launch?
It was the spring of 2006.
All right, okay. So you were very early.
Yeah, so I think Twitter is the most advanced social network we've built so far.
Okay, say more about that. How so?
Well, I actually think it should be the biggest website in the world, but people don't know how to use it, so it isn't. But they think they do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interesting things about the wonderful world of the online world is people think they're more skilled than they are,
mm-hmm.
and they're not, because it takes about 18 years for someone to adopt a piece of education, just like a child going through school and university. You know, if they start at 4 and finish at 22, they've had 18 years of information and experience, and we consider them educated in something.
Mm-hmm.
So, certainly educated enough to give them a job or a career or some path. So if you add 18 years to 2006, Twitter will have achieved that in 2024. So it'll be 18 years old. And at that point, it'll be a mature product. And it'll be as good as it will be at that time. And I'm hoping it will be under new management of Elon Musk, if that outcome happens. Because it needs, what it's always lacked is a proper leader.
Mm-hmm.
What you had with Microsoft was you had this Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer. It had these leaders. With Apple, you had Steve Jobs. With Facebook, you had Mark Zuckerberg. With Google, you had Eric and Larry and Sergey, and then you had Sundar Pichai. And obviously with Microsoft, we now have Satya Nadella. What we've never really had at Twitter is a leader, a proper leader, a proper face. And if you go back to the way it began, you may remember it was really born through things called tweet-ups. Do you remember tweet-ups?
No.
So you're familiar with the application called meetup.com, are you?
Yeah.
So Twitter began with physical meetups, and they were called tweet-ups. And we used to get together in pubs and bars and hotels and restaurants all over the world and have tweet-ups and tweet together, sit down and tweet together. And I remember going to hundreds of these. And I find them very fascinating that we were basically getting together to use some software. We weren't getting together to drink some coffee. We weren't getting together to eat some food. We were getting together to use some software together. And this is how this is how it got known. This is how it developed its following, its brand, its presence, its audience. And of course, we know in Silicon Valley, income follows audience. We know this. We know these organizations are very focused on their advertisers and their shareholders. There's less regard for their users. These businesses are built for advertisers and they're built for shareholders. So once this organization got momentum, in came those big investors, in came that shareholder advertiser profile, and the tweet ups disappeared. And the tweet ups were cancelled. It's all online. We don't need offline. We don't need face to face. We don't need these meetups. We don't need these tweet ups. And they killed the golden goose. Because what people really like is what I call intimacy as a service. People like to belong to small, intimate groups online and physically meet up with people offline, whether that be in a pub, a curry house, a restaurant, a lunch, a breakfast, whatever. But people like small, intimate groups. People seek intimacy, and they're desperate for intimacy. But Silicon Valley is focused on advertisers and shareholders, not users, not focused on users' needs. I mean, it gives users tools, but it doesn't focus on what they really want, what they really seek, what they really long for. So the magic of the tweet up, and I went to tweet ups all over the world. Literally, I used to fly to a tweet up, and I used to think, what am I doing? I'm going around the world to go to a tweet up.
And then people would just sit together and send tweets.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And of course, what you had was you had an identity and a profile associated with a platform, and we were called tweeters or Twitterati, or we had lots of labels the media gave us, but we were in a gang. We were Twitterers. We were in the club. We were part of the family. We felt like we were building it ourselves.
Mm.
But as I say, when the capital arrived, the advertisers arrived, the sort of corporateness arrived. And the leaders that we had, Ev Williams, Jack Dorsey, Biz Stone, Dick, what's his name, Dick Costello, they were managers and geeks. They weren't leaders. Individuals like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Dell, Elon Musk, Ross Perot. These are unique individuals. You might only meet 10, 20, maybe 30 of these people. You might only see 20 or 30 in your whole life like this, of this. And so Twitter was kind of really the church of social media. It was the church of the news. It was, and to me remains, the most advanced platform ever built. But people don't know how to use it. Yet they think they know how to use it. And even sophisticated people think they know how to use it. And I watch them using it. I think, no, you don't know how to use it, but you think you know how to use it. And so imagine you've got very skilled footballers or tennis players turning up to play a sport that they don't really know how to play, but they think they do.
Yeah.
You get this arrogance, you get this miscommunication, you get this inaccuracy, you get this anger, you get all these sorts of things. So,
okay, well, a couple of things there. So, one, why do you say it's the most powerful social media platform? And then we can go into, well, how could people use it? How should they use it?
It's the only one. It's the most powerful because it's the only one that's ORS.
For people who don't know, open, random, and supportive.
Yes. Most of the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, they're closed, very selective, and they like to be in control of everything. Twitter is the only one that's open, random, and supportive, the opposite of the others.
Isn't Facebook like that? Because you can set up groups and...
No, it's controlled. It's controlled.
Say more about this, because I could say Twitter's controlled as well, because it's a centralized company that's running everything. Both platforms...
It's become that way. It's become that way, but it wasn't born that way.
Okay.
It was born decentralized. It was born ORS. It wasn't born CSC.
All right.
See, the difference, once a company goes public, it moves to CSC because the public shareholders demand it. But Twitter was born ORS. It was born.
CSE being closed?
Closed, selective, and controlling.
Okay, so CSC, closed, selective, and controlling. Okay, but then what about programs like alternatives like Gab and Parler and Mastodon, which is decentralized?
Yeah, but what they have is those are more fundamentalist platforms. They're really platforms for extremists, both sides. So by the very nature of the profile, they're closed.
Well, I would say that they're platforms that don't have this level of censorship that's on Twitter. They're censorship resistant. So then you get people, people, and going back to the other video, right? There are certain doctors, highly qualified, credentialed medical experts who treat people frontline with, because this one's going to be on YouTube, right? With this particular affliction that's been dominating news headlines for a couple of years, right? They have been deplatformed off Twitter, despite their expertise. And then they go to Parler or Gab or Truth Social or Mastodon in order to get their voice out. Doesn't qualify them as extremists.
No, but they have I work on big averages.
Right.
And I work on the mass. And the niche platforms are for certain profiles. And unfortunately, once these companies go public, they move from ORS to CSC. They have to. And then the moment they become CSC, they become public companies with shareholders. Then in comes the censorship, in comes the control, in comes the management. And then the other splinter groups splinter away, as you've rightly indicated. But it's so hard to get the balance right between ORS and CSC, and very, very few people have achieved it. Elon Musk is trying to do it. He's trying to be both at the same time, and obviously he keeps getting told off by the SEC for being naughty with his tweets. Let's say.
Yes, naughty at school.
But he is an ORS profile. He is a CSC profile as well, because he has to be engineering the kind of products that he makes. You can't do it any other way. But he's one of the very few people, because offline you've got to be CSC, online you've got to be ORS, and there's two different behavior profiles. When you're in a boardroom, you're CSC. When you're on Twitter, you're ORS. And very few people can achieve that. I only discovered ORS and CSC in 2009, and that has to have its 18 years to be accepted as a theory, as an idea, as a concept. So not really until 2027, my belief in that theory will have settled long enough for me to deal with it and for everyone else to deal with it. But we're moving into an ORS world where data is revealed in near close to real time as possible. And the only platform that really delivers real-time data to the world is Twitter.
Yeah, and I think I would argue, in terms of Twitter's power over the others, Twitter definitely has network effect over Gab and Truth Social and Parler and Mastodon. Definitely hasn't. But
also look at the scale of its usage in reality. They claim to have 300 million users. If you consider that 1% of those would be hyperactive, generating the content. Remember, you have 90% lurk, 9% comment, 1% post. So when you take 1% of 300 million, you're talking about 3 million people. When you divide that by 24 hours in a day, you're talking about 250,000 people, between 100 and 250,000 people per hour. So the active content creator core is between 100 and 200,000 people an hour. Now, in a world of 8 billion people, that's very, very niche. Very, very small. And those are really the group influencing the world in real time with their news or events or comments or posts. And so that's a very, very small percentage of the world influencing the mass.
That's incredible, because, with my history as a student and later on of like street activism, and then I see all these Twitter protests, and I think to myself, it's not going to do anything. It's me or some other guys sitting at home on their own tweeting. That's not going to change the world. And I made a comment like that, and that was when we got this. But what I hear in what you're saying is that these people, the ones that are active, tweet something, and it triggers a conversation. that then grows and grows and grows and expands and spreads and spreads and spreads, which then I'm assuming you're saying could lead to real life changes.
Yes, and I think we're seeing a world speeded up by Twitter to the point where people are overwhelmed with information. Whereas I think of YouTube as entertainment. I think of Facebook as entertainment, like a calendar, like a journal, like a diary of events. Rich is doing this, Thomas is doing that, Penn is doing this, TJ's doing that. YouTube to me is like watching television.
Mm.
It's just pocket television. I know it's much more than that, but I'm just treating it at the highest level. LinkedIn is a yellow pages for business. Instagram is pictures, camera. It's like it's share your holiday snaps platform. But Twitter is real time news.
Right.
It's real time news, including all the errors and all of the attempts to mislead, misinform, confuse, create conspiracy theories, fox, doubt, manipulate, challenge, all those sorts of things, but all in real time. And really only being operated really by a few 100,000 people.
That's incredible. Okay.
And if you know who those people are, then you have a deeper insight into what's really happening, and you can then check. But because the people who operate Twitter don't really know how to use it themselves, this is very challenging and controversial for me to say, but the people who wrote the software don't know how to use the software.
Mm.
It's like the people who invented tennis not being able to hit the tennis ball.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Or the people inventing football not know how to play football.
Well, I can break it. I listen to think of what you're saying like this. It's a difference, say, between being a coder who's got real skills in programming, but may not necessarily have real be an expert in interpersonal and communication skills. Okay.
Very, very similar. Very, very similar. So what you have is a very advanced platform that's misunderstood, where every fix is about the software. Let's change the software. Let's re-edit it. Let's manipulate. Let's put that there. Let's put that there. What people actually want is the tweet ups.
Yeah. Well, somebody could start them again.
But they can only start from the top. Because originally they started at the bottom and the top killed them.
But what if you and I...
But the fact the top doesn't understand that they're needed means that the top doesn't understand what they've built.
Okay, but what's you and I could just tweet that I'm going to have a tweet up in my local city at this time, meet me here.
Not without brands, not anymore.
Right. Okay.
We would be labelled protest.
Okay.
It has to come from the top.
Okay, it was certainly.
And I went to tweet ups in schools, I went to tweet ups in universities, I went to tweet ups in curry houses, bars, restaurants, all over the place. They were fantastic.
They sound like a lot of fun.
They were fantastic. And they lasted from about 2006 to about 2010, and then they were killed.
Okay. All right. So
it's a lot like Mrs. Thatcher took away my milk. Thatcher the milk snatcher when I was 10 years old in 1974. I never forgave her for that.
I remember that.
I took away school dinners in 1980. I never forgave her for that.
Yeah.
I always think, obesity created by Mrs. Thatcher because she took away milk and proper school lunches. But hailed as a hero. But in reality, I can never forgive her for those two things because at the time I was a child and I needed my milk. And I didn't understand when they said the government's taking away the milk. And I said, what is government? I'm 10. I don't know what government is. But people make mistakes when products are right and create different outcomes. And tweet ups are what made Twitter successful.
Okay. So how should people use Twitter? How could they use it that they're not using it?
We have to be... To really answer this question, you have to be in a classroom with people live and real time and observe people using it on TweetDeck. It's not until people understand what it is. And TweetDeck is the best part of Twitter. It's not until they understand what it is and how it works. They go, oh, so that's how you use it.
Right.
So if people haven't heard of TweetDeck, if people haven't used TweetDeck, if they don't know how to use TweetDeck, if they don't know why they should even consider it, they already don't understand. If they're at the point where they're trying to figure out how to use it with TweetDeck, they're very much more advanced, and they're very, very rare, those people. So if I'm teaching it, I'll teach it on TweetDeck, and then I'll watch people go, oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. And then it'll go on for a few hours, and they say, oh, and it takes about 3 or 4 hours, and they go, oh, that's how you use it. So I used to run these Twitter classes at Warren House Hotel back in 2007. I used to charge people £99 for the day. And they'd arrive for a bacon sandwich at 8, and then we'd start at 9. And I'd teach it non-stop from 9 till 6. And we'd do the whole, and I'd have like 50 people in the room. And I was watching the whole day what people going, oh. I have a whole day of that. And I ran that many, many times to try and encourage. And and then in the evening we had a tweet up in this hotel in Kingston. It held about 50 people. But it took all day for them to grasp it. And you see, you don't know what people know until you see them on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to watch people. It's like car driving tests. The reason that person has to sit next to you in the car is because they have to watch you driving and then correct your errors. And when you're teaching people how to use a software platform, you have to watch them using it like a driving instructor. Watch their errors and then go, oh no, there you turn left. That's when you do an emergency stop. That's when you turn right. That's when you look in the mirror. That's when you put the brake on. You have to do that with software. Otherwise, people build up bad habits. No different to people building up bad habits at tennis or football or cricket, or because they haven't been taught. And you have to be taught how to use Twitter. I don't think you can use Twitter without lessons. In the same way,
Are there any
I don't think you can learn how to drive a car without lessons. I mean, yes, you could figure out how to drive a car, but it would be pretty challenging for the first few weeks.
Yes.
And then once people have figured out how to use Twitter, they then get caught in their version of what they think their echo chamber is.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to find out about how to use Twitter, where could they go, or who should they follow, apart from you, of course, Thomas?
Well, they could come and ask me, but there's nowhere to go. And Twitter themselves haven't realized that it has to be taught. It's like they've launched cars without driving instructors. Has to be taught.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. One point I want to make, which you said before we started recording, which is that Twitter it allows ordinary people to have access to many, many other ordinary people. So it's not intermediated like through corporates in the way that the other social media platforms are, which I'd never.
Yes, I mean, powerful people and powerful corporates and powerful politicians attempt to manipulate it, as they do on all these platforms through advertising and through various cunning posts. But sophisticated users like me can see through manipulative content. But you have to be taught how to not see it.
Right, okay. Okay, any tips, any advice you want to give to people with regards to Twitter before we finish up? Or any last words?
Well, I would say if you can, learn how to use TweetDeck. Teach yourself with the videos on YouTube, or find a professional to teach you locally where you live. But get taught how to use it properly, and invest in a teacher or a coach to show you how. Because it is by far the best platform, and it still is. There's still nothing to match it, still now.
And do you offer the coaching on TweetDeck?
Well, it's not something I push, but I'm happy to do it if people ask.
Right, okay. And then people can reach you through your Twitter, which I'll link to in the description below.
Sure.
Right. Thomas, anything else you want to say before we finish up?
I just thank you for inviting me on your show.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. And we had two conversations. One was this one, the second part, which is about Twitter. And the first part, which will be on the censorship-resistant platforms, is about a particular episode that really started towards the end of 2019 and has dominated the news headlines and people's experience ever since. So please go over to Crypto Rich Odyssey if you want to see that. It may be up on 3Speak, but definitely on Crypto Rich Odyssey. And Thomas, I really, really appreciate you taking the time out to have this conversation with me.
Can I add one thing, Rich?
Please, of course.
If you go on YouTube, you'll find a video I made with Mark Sinclair many years ago about Twitter. If you Google Thomas Power and Twitter or Twitter Thomas Power, you'll find that video on YouTube. And I talked about the fact that Twitter's so powerful that a president or a prime minister would run the country on it at some point in the future.
And Trump certainly did do that.
And Trump was the first person to do that between 2016 and 2020. And he was very, very good at using it, but he made mistakes.
Right.
But he wasn't aware of the mistakes he was making. I was, but he wasn't aware of them. But I made that video 8 years before he became that leader with that profile. No other leader has figured out how to use it in that way since, because it's too hard for them and none of their advisors know how to guide them. I could do it for a prime minister, or a president, but you have to know what you're doing in order to do this.
That's extraordinary.
And I talked about that many years ago. And I think until Elon Musk showed his prowess on Twitter, and Elon replied to one of my tweets in 2017 that I kind of created an event which gave him permission to reply to me, which you have to know how to do. And I got like 10,000 retweets when he replied to my message. You have to know how to do that. And it's very, very sophisticated use of communication and technology at the same time. And we haven't, until Elon has showed his prowess on the platform, we haven't really seen anybody doing it other than Trump, who was using it, I think, in a more of a dark way. But we haven't seen it from any politician or any chief executive or any real leader at all yet, because it's not mature. We won't really see the proper use of it until 2024, when it's had its 18 years settling in period.
Right, okay.
Because platforms need 18 years to be absorbed.
And what were the mistakes Trump made?
He allowed his ego to be more important than the voter. The most important thing is the voter, not your ego. And he used to let his ego get away. He started well, but the person who was I know the person who was running that for him, he let that person go, and that was a big mistake.
Right.
Like a ghost tweeter, you know.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thomas, thank you so much. I so appreciate you taking the time. I'll link to your Twitter profile in the description below. And if I find the video, Thomas Power and Mark Sinclair on YouTube, I'll link to that as well. If you have any comments or questions, please post them below the video. And please do come and follow me on Odyssey. Also follow my Twitter, CryptoRichYT, and join my official Telegram announcement channel. Between now and I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with great tweets. This is Tweeter Thomas and Tweeter Rich signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.
See you.